Joe Rogan, T.D. Jakes, Islam, three names you'd never expect in the same headline, but here we are, and trust me, what went down will leave you rethinking everything you thought you knew about faith, strength, and wisdom. So buckle up, this isn't just a story, it's a lesson, and it might just change the way you look at life. When T.D. Jakes began speaking about Islam, the atmosphere shifted in a way that caught even Joe Rogan off guard. You could see it in his face. His eyes narrowed, his body leaned forward, not in suspicion, but in fascination. This wasn't the typical sound bite conversation you hear when religion comes up. No, this was different. Jakes wasn't delivering a sermon, he was offering perspective, and perspective has a way of disarming people. It forces you to pause, even if for a second, and think, maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. He spoke about the respect woven into Islam, the discipline stitched into its fabric, and the unity it inspires among millions who may not share the same language, race, or background, but bow their heads in the same direction 5 times a day. Rogan, who's used to hearing people talk about Islam through the lens of politics or media bias, was suddenly faced with something more raw, more human, more universal, and it shook him because truth has a certain sound. You don't have to believe in it to recognize it. It hits you in the chest whether you like it or not. Think about it. Rogan's entire career is built on bringing different perspectives to the table. One day it's a fighter, the next a scientist, then a comedian. They all tell stories from their corner of the world, and he listens because each perspective adds another brick to the wall of understanding. That's exactly what Islam has been doing for over 400 years. It's not just a religion. It's a collection of perspectives, a library of experiences from scholars who debated philosophy, from merchants who traveled the Silk Road, from poets who turned faith into art, and from leaders who built civilizations. And here's where it gets interesting. The shock for Rogan wasn't that Jakes was praising Islam. The shock was that it sounded familiar. It echoed things he already believed: respect, discipline, unity. Aren't those the very qualities Rogan admires in fighters who step into the octagon? Aren't those the principles he sees in artists who dedicate years to their craft, or scientists who pursue knowledge with relentless focus? Suddenly, Islam didn't sound like something foreign. It sounded like wisdom he already respected, spoken in a language he hadn't taken the time to understand. It's like when you hear a piece of music in another language. At first, you don't know the lyrics, you don't know the meaning, but you feel it. The rhythm, the emotion, it resonates. Later, when you finally learn the translation, it makes perfect sense because your heart had already recognized its truth before your mind did. That's what was happening in that room. Rogan wasn't just listening to words, he was recognizing a rhythm he'd already been living by in his own way. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. We get so caught up in labels, Muslim, Christian, atheist, skeptic, that we forget perspective has the power to bridge gaps those labels create. The same way, two fighters from opposite ends of the world can enter the cage with different flags on their shoulders, but the second that bell rings, they're bound by the same rules, the same discipline, the same respect. It's the perspective of the fight that unites them. So when Jakes spoke about Islam, it wasn't an argument, it was a mirror that showed Rogan, and honestly, anyone listening, that maybe the values we admire most in others are the very ones Islam has been teaching for centuries. Respect your parents, honor your word, be disciplined with your body, guard your tongue, show compassion to your neighbor. These aren't foreign ideas. They're universal truths dressed in different languages, cultures, and traditions. And here's the kicker. When truth is spoken, it doesn't matter whose mouth it comes from. You can hear it from a preacher, a podcaster, a fighter, or even a stranger on the street. If it's truth, it'll land. And that's exactly why Rogan was shocked, because sometimes the biggest revelations don't come wrapped in controversy or debate. They come quietly, in the form of perspective that forces you to rethink what you thought you knew. But that was just the warm-up. What came next hit harder than a UFC knockout, and it had Joe staring like he'd seen a plot twist in his own podcast. When T.D. Jakes spoke about discipline in Islam, Joe Rogan's reaction was priceless. His eyes widened, his eyebrows shot up, and you could almost hear the gears grinding in his head, because here was something that lined up perfectly with the philosophy he's been shouting from the rooftops for years. Discipline isn't the enemy of freedom, it's the doorway to it. And suddenly, it wasn't just a motivational sound bite anymore. It was connected to faith, to spirituality, to something much bigger. Think about it. We live in a world obsessed with comfort. Instant food, instant entertainment, instant everything. But what happens when you get everything instantly? You get weaker, you get restless, you lose the edge. Rogan talks about this all the time. How struggle makes you sharp, how training keeps you alive, how pushing through pain creates pride. And then Jakes pointed to Islam and said, "Look, that's the whole design." And he's right. Take fasting in Ramadan. At face value, it looks like deprivation. No food, no water, no coffee from sunrise to sunset. People outside think, why would anyone willingly do that to themselves? But the truth is, it's not about deprivation. It's about liberation. When you can look hunger dead in the eye and say, "You don't control me," that's power. When you can push through thirst, fatigue, and cravings, and still smile, still pray, still show kindness, that's not weakness. That's strength on a level most people never touch. It's the same principle Rogan preaches when he talks about cold plunges or pushing your body to exhaustion in a workout. You don't do it because it's easy. You do it because it's hard, because doing what's hard unlocks something in you that comfort never will. Islam understood that long before gyms, ice baths, or motivational podcasts. It built discipline right into daily life. Prayer 5 times a day, structure, fasting, restraint, charity, letting go of greed. Every act is training, training not just for the body but for the soul, and here's the kicker. Discipline in Islam isn't just about saying no, it's about saying yes. Yes to control, yes to growth. Yes to becoming someone who isn't ruled by desires but rules over them. Imagine the freedom in that. Freedom from addiction, freedom from laziness, freedom from the endless noise of I want, I want, I want. That's why discipline equals freedom. Because the one who can master himself is freer than the one who can buy anything, eat anything, or do anything without restraint. Rogan's whole brand is built on respect for discipline. He admires fighters who train until their knuckles bleed. He respects hunters who wait hours in silence for one perfect shot. He honors scientists who lock themselves in labs for years chasing one answer. So when Jakes connected that to Islam, it was like striking a match in a room full of gasoline. Suddenly, it wasn't about restriction, it was about design. A design that shapes human beings into their strongest, sharpest, most disciplined selves. And the beauty of it is that Muslims don't just practice discipline for personal gain. It's not about having six-pack abs or winning a title belt. It's about aligning with something higher. Every act of discipline is tied to intention. You fast not just to build willpower, but to remember those who go hungry. You pray not just to schedule your day, but to anchor your soul. You give charity not just to feel generous, but to break greed's hold on your heart. It's discipline with purpose, and that's what makes it unstoppable. Now picture Rogan hearing all this, a man who has lived his life testing limits, pushing boundaries, and seeking truth in the grind. Suddenly, he's hearing that everything he believes about discipline already lives at the heart of Islam. Not in the form of a motivational book or a weekend seminar, but in a system that's been practiced by billions for centuries. And that realization, that's enough to shake anyone, even Joe Rogan. Now here's where it gets wild. Because when the topic turned to legacy, Rogan realized Islam isn't just about how you live, it's about what you leave behind. When the conversation shifted toward legacy, you could see Joe Rogan pause, as if the weight of the word itself landed heavy on his shoulders. Legacy isn't just about what you accomplish in the moment, it's about what survives after you're gone. And when T.D. Jakes brought Islam into that picture, the contrast between what the world chases and what actually lasts became crystal clear. Because let's be honest, most of us are caught up in the race for luxury, not legacy. We're chasing the next car, the next promotion, the next follower count. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. None of those things come with you when the curtain falls. The house, it stays. The car, someone else drives it. The bank balance, numbers on a screen that vanish from your hand the moment your eyes close for the last time. Islam flips the script. It says, stop investing in what dies with you and start investing in what outlives you. The Prophet Muhammad gave a blueprint so simple yet so profound. When you pass away, your deeds stop except for three things: charity that keeps benefiting people, knowledge that continues to be used, and a righteous child who prays for you. That's it. Three streams that keep flowing long after you're gone, three ways to stay alive in the echoes of time. Imagine giving water to someone by building a well. Decades later, people are still drinking from it, and every sip adds to your scale of good deeds. Imagine teaching someone a skill, sharing wisdom, or even just planting seeds of kindness. Years down the line, that ripple grows into waves you may never see, but they carry your name. Imagine raising a child who stands tall in faith and whispers your name in a prayer while you rest in your grave. That's legacy. That's immortality. And when you compare that to the luxury people obsess over, the difference is night and day. Luxury is a picture on Instagram. Legacy is a prayer whispered in the silence of the night. Luxury feeds your ego. Legacy feeds your soul. Luxury fades. Legacy echoes. Rogan, a man who spends hours in deep conversations, couldn't ignore the weight of that. He often talks about leaving something behind through his podcast, through the ideas he shares, through the impact of conversations. He knows fame is fleeting, but ideas, they linger. And that realization connected him directly to what Islam has been saying for centuries. Real wealth isn't in what you accumulate, it's in what you contribute. Think of fighters Rogan respects. A championship belt is shiny, but eventually it collects dust. What really endures is the inspiration left behind. The kid who laces up gloves because they saw their hero fight with heart. The community that rallies because someone proved what discipline and resilience look like. That's legacy, and Islam calls every believer, every ordinary man or woman, to build that kind of impact daily through deeds that last. And here's the beautiful twist. Legacy doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't mean writing books or building monuments. It can be as simple as a smile that lifts someone's spirit, a coin dropped in a donation box, a lesson you teach your child before bed. Small seeds, planted consistently, grow into forests. That's why Islam emphasizes intention, because even the smallest act, when done sincerely, becomes monumental in the eyes of God. So while the world screams at you to chase the next shiny thing, Islam whispers, chase what matters, chase what lasts. And that whisper can hit harder than any shout, because deep down, we all know luxury won't satisfy us forever. The human heart craves meaning, craves permanence, craves to be remembered not for what we wore or drove, but for who we were and what we gave. And in that moment, Rogan realized that legacy isn't about living forever, it's about creating something that does. And just when you thought the mic couldn't drop any harder, Jakes connected Islam to something even Rogan preaches on every episode: purpose. When the conversation turned to purpose, the energy shifted again, and this time it hit Joe Rogan on a personal level. If you've watched him for any length of time, you know he loves asking people the big question. What's your why? Why do you fight? Why do you create? Why do you push yourself to the edge when it would be easier to stay comfortable? It's his way of cutting through the noise and finding the fuel behind the fire. And then T.D. Jakes brought Islam into that equation, and suddenly the pieces lined up in a way Rogan wasn't expecting. Because in Islam, purpose isn't some distant, complicated puzzle. It's not about chasing fame, stacking wealth, or living for the applause of the crowd. It's about intention. It's about taking even the smallest act, drinking a glass of water, greeting someone with a smile, feeding your family dinner, and turning it into an act of worship just by aligning it with the right heart. Imagine that. Even something as ordinary as tying your shoes can carry meaning if you do it with the consciousness of God. Purpose isn't hidden. It's right there in front of you, woven into the everyday if you choose to see it. And that's what made Rogan lean in, because here's a man who's built his life on the pursuit of meaning. He trains not just to stay fit, but to test his limits. He hunts not just for the kill, but to connect with nature and responsibility. He talks to thousands of guests not just to pass time, but to uncover truths and spread ideas. He's always chasing purpose. And now he was hearing that Islam doesn't just encourage that chase, it structures it, refines it, gives it clarity. It says, don't just live with intention. Don't just move with meaning. Think about the shift that makes. Most people go through life on autopilot. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Days blur into weeks, weeks into years. And then they look back and wonder, what was it all for? But Islam says you don't have to wait until the end to figure it out. You can anchor every single day with purpose. When you pray, it's not just exercise, it's a meeting with your Creator. When you fast, it's not just hunger, it's training your soul. When you give charity, it's not just generosity, it's breaking your ego and uplifting someone else. Every move becomes a move that matters. And Rogan could feel that, because he knows the emptiness that comes with chasing achievements that don't carry deeper weight. How many celebrities has he interviewed who reached the top of the mountain only to say, "Is this it?" How many fighters won belts only to feel the hollowness after the applause faded? Purpose is the difference between feeling full and feeling empty, even when the world says you've made it. The beauty of Islam's take is that it doesn't demand perfection, it demands intention. You don't need to do everything, but whatever you do, do it with awareness. If you're eating, thank God for the blessing. If you're working, do it honestly. If you're raising kids, raise them with love and values. It's not about adding more weight to your plate. It's about seeing the weight you already carry as meaningful. That's what transforms routine into reward, struggle into strength, life into legacy. And that's when it clicked for Rogan. He's been asking people about their purpose for years, but what he was hearing now was that purpose isn't just a personal discovery. It's a divine design. It's not something you stumble upon randomly. It's something you create daily with your choices, your mindset, your intention. And when those align, life stops being a blur of tasks and becomes a journey of meaning. So here's the real takeaway. Purpose isn't found in the big moments alone. It's hidden in the small ones, waiting for you to bring it to light. And that's why the greatest question isn't just what's your why. The real question is, are you living it right now?